Yesterday, my daughter Claire called me to ask what I thought the song should be for the father-daughter dance at her wedding, which is happening this summer. Many of you know Claire, and some of you even know that she is getting married this summer. It's going to be in July this year. So she wanted to know what kind of vibe I was thinking about. She told me that everything she was reading had suggested songs with a strong tinge of sadness and loss. I guess nowadays you can get on the internet and type in songs for father-daughter dance, and a bunch of them come up. And she said all of them really, all those songs seemed kind of sappy and sentimental, and in a way that she didn't like. And as we were talking, I thought to myself, well, maybe both of us are just in a little state of denial about that there is something poignant, there is some loss in a wedding. We both acknowledge, though, that a wedding ritual is this rite of passage in which the couple moves into this new state of reality and leaves the past behind. The bride and groom step into a future of possibility. But also, they have made a choice to do so together, forsaking all others, just with each other. And that is something new. And when something new happens, what is old passes away. So anyway, we decided to focus on hope. And so we chose Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Now, Marge, my wife, pointed out that the song does also talk about that long, cold, lonely winter. But we decided that maybe people will focus more on that experience of watching the sun rise, or watching after a storm when the sun's rays stream from behind the clouds as a new light washes over the landscape and reveals something new. You see, some people might say that hope robs us of the present. It focuses our eyes on the future and away from what is present, and so it's kind of a denial. In fact, I once heard a sermon in which the preacher interpreted the myth of Pandora's box in this way. And if you're not familiar with that myth, let me tell you briefly how it goes. It's something like this. Pandora's husband was entrusted with a box, though in Greek, I think officially it was more like a jar, but we're going to call it a box, that contained various horrors and ailments and evils that afflict humankind. Various kinds. Illnesses, for example. Maybe not unlike those in the gospel reading. Blindness, deafness, inability to walk, leprosy, but also poverty and ignorance, hunger and imprisonment. Pandora, in her curiosity one day, when her husband is away, lifts the lid, and these all escape into the world, no longer contained. But something was left behind, and before it could escape, she had slammed the lid of the box closed. And that thing left behind was hope. And so it is still in the possession of humankind. Now, this preacher interpreted this story as saying, this myth as saying that hope is really one side of a two-sided coin. On the one side are the terrors and horrors of existence, and on the other is hope. Hope is not necessary, he thought, if we are able to face with equanimity our present moment, no matter what it brings. We can welcome it. We can let go of it. We can give up our need to control it. And I'll say, I do think there is something wise in what he was saying. And I do think Claire and I, when we wanted to use Here Comes the Sun, were in some ways wanting to deny, at least a little, the sadness that every parent feels when their child, who they knew from the time they were but a few hours old till now, grows into adulthood. I'll admit, I really didn't want to be weeping as I listened to In My Life, a good song for sure, from the Beatles as well, but really more about memory and loss. So, is he right, this preacher? Is hope really stealing something from us? Is hope really robbing us of the present moment? Is it like a psychological defense? Does it make us passive in the present and unable to truly face our lives? I want to say today, no. I want to give a different account of hope. Advent is a season of hope. The word, as many of you know, Advent means coming. And we are expecting something. We are expecting the coming of a birth. And what is more about hope than the birth of a child, the birth of new life? A wedding is one thing, but the birth of a child ushers in so many thoughts of the future. It ushers in a new world. With a dose of trepidation, of course. We're now beginning our third week of Advent. And for those of you who feel like maybe you haven't really gotten into the spirit of Advent, it's not too late. Now is the time. Welcome. Let's begin today. You see, the Holy Family now is sort of traveling towards Bethlehem, and they're getting close. Mary is far along in her pregnancy. Only 11 days to go. We heard her song today, the Magnificat. It's a song of hope. It's a song of the promise of God. The song draws from the hope of the Hebrew Scriptures. And we read in Isaiah today of that hope. He says, everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. And we travel this Advent to Bethlehem with her. We are on this journey too. We are seeking God too. That's why we're here. Because we want to see God too. We want to taste and see the promises of God. But maybe you're not with the Holy Family this Advent. Maybe you're traveling with the Magi, for they too have begun their journey. And they're going to show up a little late, like me sometimes. They're going to make a wrong turn somewhere and end up in Herod's palace, tipping him off to this great event. But not yet. You see, right now they're wandering. They're following this wandering star and its light and the promise of that light. And they are seeking God too. Their journey is our journey. We seek what they seek. Today in the gospel, John the Baptist sits in prison. He was put there for calling out Herod as a lawbreaker. Herod is a despot, for sure. He uses the law for his own purposes. He uses it to stay in power. He uses it to punish his enemies. And John the Baptist is one of his enemies. And he sits there in jail. Now we all know what his fate will be. He will be beheaded after Herod promises this to his daughter at that lavish party, that one that's kind of a parody of a wedding. The daughter is not celebrated there. In fact, she's ogled and becomes the object of the gaze of the wealthy patrons. And Herod, instead of upholding her dignity, crushes it, and then promises her he will indeed kill, murder, behead John the Baptist. But that hasn't happened yet in our story. Rather, John's disciples are sent to Jesus with the question, do we need to keep waiting? Is there someone else coming? And Jesus answers, tell John what you see and hear. And he tells of the promise. Blind see, deaf hear, lame walk, and the poor hear the good news of liberation. This is the new kingdom, the new government, the new community, and it has come. Today we hear these words ring out to us. They are words of hope for us. And here is why they are not simply words of distraction, and they don't simply counsel despair at the present. We know and we see that the world is not yet the peaceable kingdom that Isaiah promises. In fact, there is still illness. The poor still suffer. There are still homeless people struggling in the bitter cold. There are still people with cancer. There are still prisoners unjustly imprisoned. There is still war. But the message of Advent, of the star that shines and leads us to Bethlehem, of the Holy Family who walks even now through the Judean hill country, of the prophets who speak God's promise is this: do not despair. The world is not in its final state. God is working, and we are called to see it. We are called to announce it. We are called to think and to plan and to work to bring about a new world. Hope calls us out of being overwhelmed by our present, by our status quo. It calls us to see possibility, even in the darkest of nights. It calls us to believe that God can indeed raise the dead. Claire is getting married, and sometimes I worry about her and David, her fiancé, and about the world they are living into. I think many of us worry. But the mystery of Christmas is this, and it mirrors the mystery of Easter. God is working even in the depths of the earth, even in the darkest of nights, even in the most violent of situations, even in the saddest of moments. Those times are still hard and scary, but they are not the final word on our lives. For a new word is being born. A new word is being spoken. A new world is being born, transforming our moments and calling us into it. We may not always be able to see the final outcome, but we can see the contours. And they are shaped by justice. They are shaped by healing. They are shaped by love. That is the promise. That is our hope. Amen.